It's a scream, baby!
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Why did it have to be snakes?
I am your father.
Game over!
Hey everybody, welcome back to Movies from the Past, the show where I talk about movies that came out anywhere from 10 to 100 years ago. I give them a rating from 1 to 10 and talk about whether I think they still hold up or not. And today we're talking about a very, very underrated movie that a lot of you guys have probably never even seen before.
What?
Just kidding, today we're talking about Jaws. And if you somehow don't know what Jaws is, then you've been living under a rock for the past 50 years. Now, it's kind of hard to know where to start with a movie like Jaws, because to put it simply, it's one of the most iconic and recognizable films ever made. When it came out all the way back in 1975, it immediately became a huge success, grossing $477 million at the box office and becoming the highest grossing film until it was surpassed by Star Wars 2 years later. Not to mention, it was also Steven Spielberg's breakout film. Over the years, Jaws has remained a staple of pop culture and is one of those films that even if you've never seen it, you've probably still heard a great deal about it. And for good reason, because Jaws is truly an incredible film. I remember seeing this movie for the first time when I was around 9 years old, and even back then, I remember loving it. Not really sure what that says about me, but regardless, Jaws is definitely a timeless classic and one of my absolute favorites. And since 2025 marks 50 years since it was released, I figured that now was as good of a time as any to talk about it. So without further ado, let's get into why I think that Jaws is such an incredible film.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Now, when it comes to Jaws, there is a lot to talk about, but to start off, I want to talk about the soundtrack. We all know that John Williams has created tons of iconic and amazing movie soundtracks over the years, like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Jurassic Park, to name a few. But if anybody were to ever ask me what I thought his best work was, I would probably have to say Jaws. Because the theme song for Jaws is basically a masterclass in how to write a good movie soundtrack. I mean, you can instantly recognize it by just hearing 2 notes. Jaws to me is a perfect example of a movie that showcases how much music can really elevate a film. Check out this clip.
A scene from Jaws without John's music.
Hooper, get clear of the bow. Hooper! Tie it up, will you?
Your turn, Quinn.
Hooper, where are you?
What John adds to a film.
He's coming. Hooper, get clear of the bow. Hooper! Tie it up, will you?
Your turn, Quinn.
Hooper, where are you?
The theme song for Jaws does something that every good movie soundtrack should do. It makes it so that if you took away the music, it wouldn't feel right whatsoever. Next, let's talk about the cast and characters. Now, it's pretty much basic film knowledge that if your movie does not have a good cast and well-developed characters, then it's probably not going to be good. Luckily, Jaws has both, especially when it comes to our 3 leads. Roy Scheider plays Chief Martin Brody, a guy who you really feel for. He's a family man, he's from New York City, but he's now the chief of police at a small summer island where not a lot seems to happen. And he also hates the water, which makes you feel really bad for him when all this crazy shark stuff starts happening. And the fact that Roy Scheider improvised this famous line is really cool to me. You all know which one I'm talking about.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Robert Shaw plays Quint, a professional shark hunter with a tragic past. And not only does Robert Shaw give an incredibly believable and all-around amazing performance as Quint, but he also gives one of the most chilling speeches that you'll ever see in a film. If you haven't seen it yet, then what the hell are you doing? Go watch it. And finally, there's Richard Dreyfuss as Matt Hooper, who to me is a good example of a character who's kind of dorky and awkward, but also charming as hell and super likable thanks to Dreyfuss's spot-on performance. All 3 of these guys have great on-screen chemistry and are always just a total blast to watch in scenes together. Which is a good thing considering that the last 50 minutes of this movie focus pretty much completely on them. Now, of course, I can't talk about Jaws without talking about Steven Spielberg. This might be a pretty common opinion, but Steven Spielberg is my personal favorite director of all time. I grew up watching tons of his movies, and as I get older, I only grow to appreciate them more and more. And Jaws is one of the earliest examples of just how amazing this guy really is. It's no secret that Jaws was an absolute nightmare to film, mostly because of the mechanical shark, or multiple sharks, that gave them tons of issues while filming.
At the press of a hydraulic button and pulling a lever back, supposedly the shark comes shooting out of the water head first. And this has absolutely happened because David Brown and Dick Zanuck were there watching with me. The shark came up tail first. It just came up tail first, and it was like it was like a 25-foot moon.
And since the shark was such a massive pain in the ass, Steven Spielberg had to come up with lots of really creative ways of making it so that the shark didn't actually have to be in the movie as much as they had originally intended. Like hell, we don't even see the shark until an hour and 2 minutes into the film. And personally, I think that if Jaws was in the hands of a lesser director, then this probably would have gotten pretty annoying. But since Steven Spielberg is such a talented director, in some cases, it actually made the film better. There is tons of scenes in this movie where you know that the shark's there, you can very much feel its presence, but you never actually see it, which makes everything way more suspenseful and terrifying.
The shark was scheduled to make many more appearances according to the script, and when the shark wasn't ready, or when we tested it and it sunk, what we did was I just decided to shoot without the shark, and in a way I think it increased it twerked up the suspense of the movie because you really didn't know where it was going to come from next.
Spielberg managed to take something that was their biggest problem while filming and turn it into something that made the movie even more memorable, because sometimes less really is more. Oh, and did I mention he was only 27 years old when he made this movie? Now, speaking of that mechanical shark, let's talk about it, because there's probably some people who will watch this movie nowadays and think that it looks pretty fake. And admittedly, the shark does look better in certain shots than others. And I'm not talking about the scenes where they supposedly used a real shark, I'm specifically talking about the mechanical shark. But when you consider that this movie was made 50 years ago, I actually think that the shark still looks pretty good to this day. Let me put it this way, if you're somebody who's really afraid of sharks, then this shark definitely looks real enough to the point where you'll probably still feel pretty uneasy watching this movie. Something else that might surprise you guys is that I don't really consider Jaws to be a horror movie.
A what?
And before you come at me in the comments, I will acknowledge that it definitely has elements of horror. I mean, it does have one of the greatest jump scares in all of cinema. Man, that is good. It also does have some pretty gruesome death scenes, especially Quint's. But to me, Jaws just feels so much more like a thriller with a lot of action-adventure elements as well, especially in the second half. And I know that horror and thriller can sometimes overlap, but at the end of the day, they are two separate things. So if you guys consider Jaws to be a horror movie, then that's totally cool. I definitely get why, but I've just never really thought of it that way. And by the way, this is neither a good or bad thing. It is just something I'm pointing out. Another thing that's great about Jaws is that kick-ass cold open. Again, you never actually see the shark, but the opening scene where Chrissy Watkins is getting attacked and pulled down by the shark is one of the most memorable and famous opening scenes of all time. Which again is largely thanks to Steven Spielberg's directing. I mean, the dude really had an act for creating amazing opening scenes. But again, it is also highly elevated by John Williams' amazing score and some very convincing acting from Susan Backlund. Also, fun fact that I didn't even know until very recently is that the voice that you hear on the radio in this scene is none other than Mr. Steven Spielberg himself.
Amity Point Light Station to Orca. This is Amity Point Light Station to Orca. Come in, Orca.
Orca, come in.
I have Mrs. Mark Brody here.
But overall, Jaws is one of those films that will always be a classic. It was revolutionary when it came out and is still considered to be an amazing film 50 years later. Just like Scream, I would consider Jaws to be one of my top 3 favorite movies. It pretty much has everything that I like to see in a good movie. Phenomenal direction, amazing acting, great characters, good story, and tons of suspense and intriguing scenes to keep you interested. Like, this is an old movie that's over 2 hours long, but it never feels like it drags on. Every scene just feels completely necessary, and it never feels like it has a dull moment. And coming from me, that is a massive compliment, because I have a very short attention span. So it's probably no surprise at all that I am going to give Jaws a 10 out of 10. As always, thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider helping me out by giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. And be sure to let me know which movies you'd like to see me review next in the comments below. Alright guys, take care, and I'll see you next time.